Hello, boys and girls. Today we are going to get started on our Day of the Dead Sugar Skull project. We kind of thought it would be fun to do a little Halloween project with you guys and thought this would be a fun one to do. So we are going to kind of do a detailed sketch of a skull in our background, and then you guys are going to use mixed media to make additions to this for the typical look of sugar skulls that you see around this time. When we are doing this sketch, you guys will have this skull to reference. It's going to be at the front of the room. However, you can also kind of follow this step by step. So I'm going to try to move kind of slowly so we can all stay on the same page. We are going to be using a number 2 pencil and our blending stumps. A number 2 pencil and our blending stumps. As we have discussed with you guys many times, we are going to very lightly sketch this, and then we are going to add all of the details. We're going to start with a circle base to work from, and we're going to lay out our proportions. So this is you're going to kind of remember some of these things from when we did your self-portraits. So our first step is going to be to draw a large circle here, okay? The circle is going to end up taking up most of this skull space. So it's going to go down to about the top of its teeth, okay? So you want your circle to be a good amount of your page. I'm going to leave a few inches at the top, but I'm going to go pretty close to the edge of my paper. We will end up bringing this skull in a little bit just to get this defined shape here, but we always will start with that circular shape. So if everybody can grab their pencils and follow along with me, we're lightly pressing with our pencil. This does not have to be a perfect circle. We just want to get it nice and as round as we can. I think we've discussed this before. When you are sketching, when you are doing a light sketch, you should be holding your pencil very loosely. Like if I were in this room and coming around, I should be able to knock your pencil out of your hand because you're holding it so lightly. And you see how I have lots of lines here. We're gonna erase some of these, and then we're gonna use some of these to blend as well. Now we're going to draw a line down the center, a vertical line down the center, and we're going to drop that line, a couple inches below the bottom of your circle. Now we're going to find the midline here, a horizontal midline. Does everybody remember what is in the center of your face? I hope we all can answer that it is our eyes. So this is going to be the center line for our eyes. On our skull, it's going to be the top of our eye socket, essentially. So this line right here was the midline of my circle. Then, as you remember, you're going to have a hairline. Then between your eyes and, well, this is going to be your chin. We're going to do another mark halfway, and then we're going to kind of divide these as well. Okay, so we've got our eyes. This is going to be the base of our nose. This is going to be about the start of our, the center of our mouth, and this will be the bottom of our skull, our chin. Okay, so I like to give myself my dividing points: my eyes, the bottom of my nose, the midline of my mouth, and my chin. From here, we're going to kind of build our structure. As you see in my sketch and on this skull, you kind of do have to think about your bone structure. So while this kind of sticks out a little more, if you kind of feel your face, you're going to feel that this is your cheekbone right here, okay? So that's going to be your cheekbone there. It comes kind of at an angle. Then as you feel your face, you can feel it kind of narrows in. You have kind of your muscular socket there, and then the start of your jawline. So that is going to bump out a little bit here. okay? So while you're sketching, you can kind of run your finger along the side of your face. It's gonna help you with finding your bone structure. That's what we're building out here. Okay, the first thing we are gonna add to our circle here is the eye sockets. Then we're gonna move down to the nose. When you're drawing your eye sockets, look at the shape here that I have here. Kind of think Top Gun Maverick style, like aviator sunglass lens, okay? That's the kind of shape you're wanting to do here. So you're not gonna do the perfect round or the oval like we did for your self-portraits. We're gonna do more of the Maverick style sunglass lens shape, okay? It's kind of a rounded rectangle. Of course, we know that our nose is gonna kind of take the center line too. So we're gonna keep that in mind, that our nose is gonna come out here. So I'm gonna come a little further. You are gonna go closer than you did with, say, your self-portraits. And you're gonna go a little wider than you did with your self-portraits. But this is gonna get that good skull shape. And I'm gonna copy that shape on my other side. Again, we are loosely sketching, lightly sketching. We're gonna shade these areas, and then we're gonna leave some a little lighter for a good highlight. Notice how I've kind of come and rounded mine a couple different times, okay? So this doesn't have to be perfect your first sketch. Once we get those shapes, now we're gonna move to our nose. So this is gonna be kind of the bottom of our nose. As you can see here, my sketch earlier that I did, your nose is not, this is not gonna be a perfect structure, okay? And everybody's nose is a little different shape, but you kind of have that round heart shape on the bottom, and it's gonna narrow up. Your nose is gonna be the darkest part on your skull, so if your lines get a little darker on this, that's okay, because this we are gonna shade darker. So I'm gonna kind of start on one side of my vertical line here, and just kind of give it the basic shape I'm looking for. We're gonna go add and tweak this when we shade it. It comes out a little wider, but then you get that good, kind of funny looking heart shape, upside down heart shape, I should say. But again, we are gonna go and alter this later anyways. Now we know this is the closing of our mouth. I'm sorry, like the center line of your mouth, okay? I'm drawing that so you can see that. I don't want you guys to do that. We just want, because the teeth are gonna essentially end up staying white. But you do have your guideline there. What we're gonna do here, we are gonna come out, I'm sure you remember your mouth from when we did your self-portraits. Your mouth comes out to the center of your eye. So we are still gonna use that guideline here. And we're just gonna kind of do some rounded rectangles around that line. This is where we are gonna fill in our teeth. Okay, so now we're really gonna kind of fill in the structure of the face here. So we're gonna kind of bring our rounded edge. We're gonna, so I'm gonna bring my sample here. We're gonna, if this was my circle here, okay, see how I brought that line in, okay? Your jawbone is gonna stick out here, like I had mentioned. We bring it in kind of where your cheek is, and then this is kind of where, if you feel on your face, where your gum line starts. So your bone kind of protrudes out again there. Then we're gonna bring it down. So you can follow along with me here as well. Okay, so we are going to kind of narrow this in a little bit. And you can see here, again, feel on your face, your cheekbone is it kind of takes up It starts at the middle to the base of your eye, and it drops all the way down. So you're gonna kind of have a little protrusion out there, but you're gonna bring this round shape in a little bit here. Then we're gonna knock this out to represent your cheekbone. You're gonna kind of look like, what's his name? Frankenstein, which I guess is fitting. We're doing Halloween. Okay, so then we're gonna, again, feel your facial structure. You're gonna bring this in. That's kind of where the hollow of your cheek is, okay? And now we go back out for the top of your gum. This we're gonna line up with our teeth, okay? Because like I said, this is kind of the top of your gum line. So we're gonna bring that to line it up with our teeth there. And then we're gonna do the same to the other side. Narrow this in. I'm gonna kind of gauge how far I narrowed that in to kind of, doesn't have to be exactly even. These are just gonna be fun Day of the Dead skulls after all. But here's where my little cheekbone's gonna protrude out. My cheek hollow, and a jet out where my gums start again to match up with my teeth. I kind of like the shape of this hollow and how this kind of gets pointier over here. So we're gonna lightly fix this side. I'm just shaping these up until I get it to the point that I like. Now in the skull, on this, you can kind of see your cheekbone really kind of hollows out here, and this is kind of, if I was a doctor I would know, but I don't. You can kind of see how this is hollow. You can feel that. It's kind of the indentation right on the side of your forehead. So we're gonna make lines here to create that depth. We're gonna end up shading that in as well. Not an exact line, just kind of a fun little squiggle. We're gonna do that on both sides. And then we've got the basic structure of our head. We're gonna add our teeth, okay? Center teeth, everybody knows our teeth are symmetrical. Well, I guess they're not exactly symmetrical, are they? But you have the same amount. So get your center line and fill in your teeth here. Your little roots are kind of pointed. They're gonna slowly, gradually get smaller as they go. And then they're gonna kind of fall behind the next. So just get a couple in there to fill that opening that you had placed. Again, we're gonna have more shading here. And then I'm gonna do my bottom. Those tuck underneath the top teeth, so we don't need to do the top of the bottom row of teeth. We're just gonna line them up and round out the bottoms. Okay, again, if I were a doctor, I could tell you what these parts of your face are called, but I can't. So just bear with me. But this is kind of where I guess your muscles probably are back in there that help your jaw move, okay? And then this is usually kind of it's gonna be this kind of white hollow part. This is dark shading here, but it's this white hollow part here, okay? So I've got this line connecting my jawbone to the bottom of my teeth. Then I'm gonna come down from the side of my bone here and square out my jaw. So this should be nice and squared. We're getting skinny in here. Let's start here, and we're gonna square it out. And so now you can see your skull is starting to really take shape. Once again, notice all my sketch lines. We're gonna blend with this. But you don't need dark, deep, single lines. Get good sketch lines there. Okay, so I like how this is looking. I am gonna bring my shape of the top of my skull. I'm gonna change this just a smidge. I do want it to come out a little further here. As you can see, it kind of lines up rather than all the way up here. Okay, so I'm just gonna make a couple little tweaks if you guys wanna watch to see what I'm doing here. And then we're gonna move on to shading because I'm kind of liking where this is. And we are gonna go and decorate these anyways, so we are not going for absolute perfection anyways. Okay, I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. So either use the, well, actually don't use the eraser on the back of your pencil. Let's all share our bigger pencils or our bigger erasers. And kind of let's erase just those outer initial lines we did for the circle. And then we're gonna clean up in here as well. I'm gonna erase my dividing line, but I'm not gonna worry about these thick sketches just yet, or these thick sketch lines just yet. We're gonna use those for blending. Those come in handy when you're using your blending stump. Once you get this all erased, a couple things to note, and I'm gonna pull out my original sketch to show you guys. Around your eyes, just to give it nice depth and dimension, if you leave a little white space around the hollow of your eye at the base of it, it's gonna give it really nice structure and shadow. So as I am shading around my eye, notice this line right here in between this is lighter. In fact, I could even go and highlight it even more and really erase any smudges. I think that just gives it good depth. So you're gonna have that around both eyes. We're gonna start shading the sockets and the nose first. Notice you're darker on the insides, kind of like when you were shading, when you were coloring in your self-portrait and you were shading, we got darker around the insides of your eyes, and then you had shadows on your nose. Your nose socket, for lack of better terms, is the darkest on the skull too. So we'll color this in dark. Then we can use this with our smudge stick as kind of a helper tool to gain more charcoal from our pencil to smudge other places. Okay, so let's start with our eye sockets. We're gonna start dark in the center, or darker I should say. And then we're gonna kind of get lighter on the way out. So I'm just gonna actually shade in the entire eye lightly to start. And then I'm gonna get darker as I go in the inside. Okay, so see, I'm kind of doing a curve here. So I'm gonna kind of do the same thing over here. I might leave a little more white, or light, I should say. But I'm gonna shade the whole eye lightly, just for blending purposes. With my blending stump, that will be helpful. So you guys go ahead and kind of follow along and finish both eyes there with your shading. And once you get to about this point, we're gonna pause and we're gonna pull out our blending stump and we're gonna start blending this in here just to kind of see what our variation looks like. So I'm gonna shade the whole thing in. Sometimes if you use the point of your blending stump, it doesn't tend to blend as well. So if you move to the side of it, it'll help blend it faster. And blend the other side just the same. You guys go ahead and do this, and then I'm just gonna continue with shading a little bit, getting my corners a little darker, and then I'm gonna do my nose as well. When I do my nose line, I am gonna leave a center, really skinny center oval, just for depth. But go ahead and start getting your eyes done, and then move on to your nose. I'm just gonna constantly kind of be moving from pencil to blend. I think that looks pretty darn good. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on to my nose. I hope you guys are all still with me here. We're gonna reshape that. I'm just gonna kind of give it just a more imperfect shape, just because I think that gives it a better look for a skull. So I'm really literally just scribbling the edges, and then I'm gonna press pretty hard while I'm coloring this in. Not filling the entire area because the blending stump will take care of that for me, but I've given this a good dark base. Notice I did leave a center line here, and we're just gonna use the side of the blending stump and blend. If you get out of the lines of that, that's fine. We're gonna shade anyways. So it's gonna be helpful if you do actually. Use the front of my stump though. And then I'm gonna just give this a little touch there. I do think I lost a little shape, so I'm gonna erase just a smidge. Okay. Now around the eye, again, I'm just gonna show this again. Notice if you feel around your eyes, your eye bones really do kind of stick out a little bit. So this is literally just your bone bumping out is this shadow, okay? So I'm gonna give myself a guide like this around to know that I don't wanna shade between the socket and this line. I'm gonna leave that white for a highlight on both. And then I'm gonna slowly start sketching out. And then I'm just gonna really use my blending stick to kind of add the shadows throughout. But I want you guys to kind of follow along with me. So let's start here and draw very lightly. Draw kind of just an outline. And we're not gonna go completely around the eye. We're gonna start just in from the corner of the eye, and we're gonna give it an outline like that. Here we're gonna start, you know, just kind of where my shading starts to change tone. We're gonna start there, leave a little space in between it, and I'm gonna go all the way up on this side. Okay, now I'm gonna do kind of like what we learned when we did our line animals. We're gonna use that crosshatch shading effect right here, just to really give it a good blend. Your cheekbone has some good highlights in it. I'm gonna add some on this side as well. Again, those light cross hatches. And then we're gonna blend that in with the stump. And then as I'm using my blending stump, I'm just gonna kind of move throughout the face to think of where the highest points of contrast would be. So in these little points, in these little crevices, that's a high point of contrast. Right here in your jaw, you want this to kind of be hollow, okay? But so this is a high point of contrast because this is gonna be white. So we want this a little darker. We're gonna have more shading here, okay? Around the chin, we'll have more shading. You can give yourself the skull a little bit of shape with your blending. He's gonna have, or she is gonna have a little more shading around the lips. I'm gonna give it kind of that like brain shadow there, okay? And then I'm just gonna kind of darken out the outside all the way around and bring my shadows in, lightly shading throughout where the bone structure would be. To finalize it, then we're gonna go through and add these crack lines, which I think are super cool. So if you guys wanna watch me for a minute and then you can follow along, but I'm gonna start actually even up here, just to kind of start blending this. Another thing, don't worry, if you're getting outside of here, don't worry, we're gonna cut these out. So, and if your blending stick starts getting too dirty, it's a great way to clean it. Just use your paper up here. Get rid of some of that charcoal. Okay, so I'm blending this in. Again, my sketch lines are coming in handy. All of those light sketch lines I did, because those are helping me with this blending. I'm even gonna kind of make this a little darker line, kind of give it a more exciting look. I'm gonna shade in around my eyes. My blending stick's getting kind of dirty. I'm gonna lighten some of that up. Again, this is very forgiving because it's all lead, but I'm gonna lighten up that shadow and just use, there we go. Forehead. See how this kind of really gives it that bone structure look because of that white, just literally based off that one white line I left. And now I'm kind of using more of the point here around the teeth, just to kind of give it a little bit of depth there. And every once in a while, pause, stop, and kind of hold it up and look at it. See what you think. Where you need more lines, like think this is kind of a cheekbone. Think of the structure of your face while you're doing this. And think about when you were doing your self-portraits, where you were doing your highlights and your shading. That's all coming full circle now, isn't it? I'm gonna get one of these sides a little darker than the other of shadows. But I think I'm kind of liking how this is looking. I might be finished with the shading, and we will add some cracks. So even if you guys aren't to this point where you think you're finished with your shading, let's go ahead and everybody peek up here so you can kind of see what we're gonna do with these cracks, okay? These cracks throughout, I think all of them on skulls are different, but there are some typical cracks you see. Why, I don't know, ask your pediatrician, but you're gonna have one up from your nose. It centers over to your eyes. I'm gonna have this one just kind of go through. I'm kind of just following these lines that I've done here. Gonna have it kind of crack down here. These are just kind of fun squiggly lines. And up into that. This one, and this I'm doing with the point of my pencil. These can be a little harder because we do want these. That one's just gonna stop right there. I'm gonna have one come up from my cheekbone, but I'm gonna have this kind of follow that structure there to go up there. Okay, one from my and down. Again, just giving it some fun, spooky looks. I think I like that. Now we are gonna add the, look, I say that and I'm gonna highlight a couple spots. I got them a little dark. But once we are here, I think these are gonna look really cool once we decorate them with all the mixed media that we have options for you to create them to look as sugar skulls like the Day of the Dead. All right, guys, have fun.